Hi all, welcome back to the final whistle then. It's match preview night as Plymouth Argyle come to the King Power Stadium this weekend as Steven Schumaker's men seem to be playing some decent stuff this season. They'll be the visitors this weekend. I'm going to be joined by Joe from Green and White Army, brought to you by Argyle Life. He's going to be joining me to give me the lowdown on this weekend's visitors, Plymouth Argyle. Of course, we're going to do the foot in both camps. We're going to get through getting to know the opposition. We're going to do score prediction, team selection, all that. Quite a lot to get done in the show. Guys, as always, remember to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel as well. If you're new to the channel and you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. It helps out massively. Let's see who's in tonight then. Callum's in. How are you, Callum? Kyle's in. How are you, mate? I'm going 3-0 Leicester tomorrow. Evening, Scott. How are you, my friend? Hope you're well. I'm all right, pal. I'm good. Let's get the opposition in then. Mr. Joe from Green and White Army podcast, brought to you by Argyle Life. Joe, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, very good, Jack. Thank you. All good.
Very good. Tell everybody what you do then at Argyle Life, mate.
We waffle endlessly about everything Argyle. So we do written pieces to audio podcasts, usually a preview and a review of the game. Midweek games, we tend to do live spaces on X, formerly known as Twitter, before Elon files a lawsuit. So we do plenty of that. And in the new year, we're very excited to be branching into the world of YouTube. So we'll be live on there for the midweek games, and all our podcasts will go onto YouTube as well as all the usual platforms, Apple, Spotify, and things like that. So it's something that started up a few years ago, sort of fizzled out, but because last season was so good, we had to ramble to somebody about it. So we reignited the podcast, and we're all really enjoying it.
Fantastic. Let's get to know the opposition then. Plymouth Argyle won the league last season, League One. How did you feel about that one then, beating Ipswich to the League One title?
A lot of people probably looked at us thinking 81 points the season before. I think it was 7 or 8 of the last 10 seasons, 81 would have had you finishing 3rd or 4th in League One, let alone finishing just outside the playoffs. So I think a lot of people were a little bit cautious, I suppose, of how we would take that disappointment, how we would carry it into last season. On paper, last season looked an unbelievable year in League One. And it's easy for me to say when we finished with 101 points, but it was a really, really high quality edition of that division. Leicester, Ipswich, Sheffield Wednesday pushing us all the way. I mean, Sheffield Wednesday not getting promoted with 96 points just highlights probably how good both us and Ipswich were. The teams in the playoffs all had fantastic seasons. So it was an unbelievable year. We were carried overwhelmingly by the home form, 20 wins out of 23 played at home park, which is a quite unbelievable season. And obviously the away form managed to back that up, even if the latest stat about our away form doesn't quite carry it through to this season. But, there's a long way to go yet. So to win a stronger League One as we did, we're incredibly proud of it. We're carrying on the fearless nature that we approached last season, this season.
Yeah, talk to me about Steven Schumaker. How has he adapted to life from League One to the Championship? Obviously, it's another step up level, isn't it? The Championship, one of the difficult leagues in Europe. How have you found life in the Championship as a Plymouth Argyle fan, and how has he found it as a manager?
I don't want to talk too highly of him because there's a few jobs in the Championship that are available at the moment, and the bookmakers seem to have a field day. The bookmakers seem to have a field day earlier in the week, suggesting he might be on Sunderland's radar, but thankfully he's rubbished that talk. So it obviously happened very quickly. Ryan Lowe up sticks, left to Preston, and at the time, I mean, we all knew probably the late Sunday night, early Monday morning that was going to happen. Then, of course, the speculation begins: who's going to take over? The automatic assumption was that Shuey was going to follow his mate to Preston, and the football club were quite clear that they wanted Shuey. I mean, let's be honest, Jack, it was a heck of a gamble by the decision maker. Riding high at the top of League One to give that job then to a rookie, and I think it's safe to say it's paid off. 56% win rate. He's got the highest points per game of any manager in Argyle's history. Which, when you think of the glory days of Paul Sturrock and going back to other promotion winning managers, Neil Warnock, the likes of that, it's quite an achievement to have that record. In terms of how he's adapted to the Championship, I don't think much has changed from him. I know he's tweaked our system a little bit from what we played last year, but it's all the same really with Shuey. It's every game is the next game. There's never looking further in front than the next 90 minutes. And as for us, how have we found life in the Championship? Absolutely nothing has surprised us, I don't think. We are loving every second of it. Every game at home park has you on the edge of your seat. I mean, even the games on the road, we're only getting beat by one goal difference in all but one of our away games so far. So, and that night we just made wholesale changes. So, it's been good fun. It's a learning curve. Every game's a learning curve. There aren't many players in this squad that have Championship experience. So, they're learning on the job. They're finding their feet. But I think the last couple of blocks of fixtures, if you like, in between international breaks, there've been real progression, I would say, with this team. So, long may that continue, given we don't have one of those ghastly breaks now until March.
You sit 16th, don't you, in the league at the minute? People, obviously, me myself had Plymouth to stay up this season, in my opinion. The likes of Whittaker, the front three's been highly talked about this season. If you watch the Championship quite respectively, Whittaker's been strutting his stuff in the Championship, proves he can deal in this sort of environment. How have you found the front three? I mean, who's been would you say your standout players so far in watching Plymouth Argyle?
I mean, you've mentioned him there. It is probably Morgan Whittaker of that front three, certainly. I mean, he'd had a couple of loan spells out of where he was. He came in to us from Swansea. And I mean, that first half of last season was excellent from him, really. He seemed to really enjoy his football. He seemed to be settled and happy more than anything. He seemed really happy with how things in his life were going. And then, unfortunately, I think it was 3 or 4 days into the transfer window, we were going to Bolton on the Saturday, and Whittaker got recalled on the Wednesday or Thursday. I think because Rangers were swooping, and Ipswich of all teams were inquiring into him, and Swansea thought they could use him as a bit of a chess piece, really, in a financial battle. They weren't looking at him as a footballer; they were looking at him as a commodity. And that really did affect Morgs, and he went back, and he didn't really play a massive amount of game time, and he made it clear when Michael Duff went in. I don't think it was any slight on Michael Duff whatsoever, but he made it clear in Michael Duff's first team meeting, I've done my time here. I want to get out. And I think it was fairly clear there was only one home that he wanted to come to, and that was Plymouth. Him and his partner really found happiness down here. They enjoy it. He enjoys playing for the club, and we went and broke our transfer record twice in the same week, incidentally. We got him in, and you can just see it. His body language, his demeanour, his attitude, it's just so positive. He's really enjoying his football. And I don't think in modern day football that can be overlooked with certain players, particularly young players now. We're all envious of the money and things that they earn. And, we all talk about the lavish lifestyle that footballers have. But if they're not actually happy within themselves, you're not going to get the best out of them. And thankfully, he is happy. I mean, this season, he's taken it to another level. His consistency is fantastic. He's a wand of a left foot. I mean, we had a great player here for 4 years in the League Two, League One times, called Graham Carey, who had an absolute wand of a left foot. One of the best players I've ever seen play for Argyle. And Whittaker's left foot isn't too far off what Carey could deliver. He creates something out of nothing. He's a long way to go before he matches what Graham Carey achieved for Argyle. But he's the talisman at the moment. He's the one you look to. But there are other players in the squad that deserve notable mentions as well. I'm sure we might come on to them a little bit later. But if you're asking me to pick one out of the front three, it would certainly be, Morgan Whittaker, because he's just at the top of almost at the top of every metric that the data men look at.
Yeah, agreed. He's when we did the team of the season so far for the Championship, Whittaker was in there. So I guess so much praise in there with so many teams that have done that this season. This season so far, I think Whittaker's been highly respected in there, which shows how much hard work he's putting into this and how much ability he's got. There'll obviously be teams that will obviously look at him throughout the season for, we'll take a punt in the summer, but obviously that's got you lot would not want to see. But
they better have deep pockets, Jack. That's what I will say.
Talk to me about the game at the weekend. 97th minute winner against Stoke City, 2-1. What was your thoughts on that game?
I choose the perfect games to miss at home, Jack. I missed 6-2 at home against Norwich, and I missed the late winner against Stoke City. I don't tend to be picking them very well at the moment, but I managed to catch a full replay on Argyle TV the next day, which is always a bit of a kick in the teeth, really, because you know what's coming at what time, so you can't really get yourself excited about it. I thought, as with a lot of games that are played at home park this year, Stoke City found it really difficult to impose what they're about. I know they're quite a direct team anyway, but it seemed like they really had to go direct and long. They were really trying to feed off any scraps that Argyle gave them. And if I'm being brutally honest with you, it did look like two teams who were almost over trying, if that's a thing. There was a lot of breakdown in possession, a lot of giving the ball away. Every time one of the 10s or 8s was looking for a pass, they were looking for that $1 million ball through the lines. And in the end, their goal came from a calamity from us. It was a poor clearance from Cooper, and Lewis Gibson, who's been outstanding for us this season, sort of spent too long tracking the player who was offside and let Tyrese Campbell drift on his inside, and he tapped it home. But the two real bits of quality other than that came from our two goals. Kane Kesler-Hayden on the right, who's on loan from Aston Villa, putting a lovely ball for Mustafa Bundu, who just sort of used the pace of the cross to glance it home. And I mean, the winner it's Hollywood stuff, Jack, to be perfectly honest with you. Adam Randall was making his 100th appearance for his hometown club. If he's a player that I think a lot of the Green Army see one day as our captain. He could be, your archetypal one club man, I think. And he was making his 100th appearance. He'd never scored at home park either. All of his goals had come away from home. He scored on the final day at Port Vale on the day that we won the title. And they kept the ball alive with some brilliant work from Callum Wright, who of course is an ex-Foxes player. Luke Cundle, who's on loan from Wolves, had a go. That was cleared off the line. And then it came to Randall, who drilled it home from the centre spot. And I'm not sure whether it was the plan. He came on actually and ended up playing at right back, which isn't bad for a central midfielder. And and there was a question put to Shuey, what was your right back doing on the penalty spot in the 90th minute? But thankfully, he was in the right place at the right time, and it sparked wild scenes. So that was an important win. We'd beaten Sunderland at home the week before, and we were fantastic in that game. We then felt hard done by at Coventry in midweek with a ball that appeared to go out of play in the build-up to their goal. Obviously, you know, in the days of VAR, you're not going to, without VAR, sorry, you're not going to get them go your way. You have to take the referee's decision. So we felt hard done by at Coventry, and we probably weren't at our best that night, but a point would have been fair. And, you know, to get that win against Stoke City was vitally important because it just settled everyone down. 6 points out of 9 in that first week back from the international break was an important return. And, you know, hopefully we can use that as a springboard now going into the busiest period of the season.
Yep. Let's get into the game itself. Leicester v Plymouth. We'll do team predictions and score predictions and that later on. What's been your thoughts on Leicester itself this season under Enzo Maresca?
A lot of passing, incredibly gifted players all over the pitch. You know, I watched. I wasn't lucky enough to watch the whole game against West Brom. I sort of drifted in and out of it whilst I was at work. I saw the Leeds game. I saw the game on the opening night, where I was, to be honest with you, I was flabbergasted at how Sheffield Wednesday approached that game. No, that was Swansea City. Sorry, Southampton. Sorry, I'm trying to think of what the other Leicester game was. I've got you in
Sheffield Wednesday v Leicester.
Yeah, and I was trying to work out how Sheffield Wednesday were trying to play. And I mean, the thing about Leicester is just, as I say, unbelievable players all over the pitch, a high tempo, possession-based approach. You know, you can see who Maresca's tutor has been. You know, you can see he spent time with Guardiola. You know, they're very easy on the eye. Look, I mean, we're under no illusions about what's coming tomorrow. We're not shirking away from how difficult it's going to be. But, you know, as I said on our preview podcast that came out yesterday, you know, it's the end of the day, it's just two sets of 11 players going out against each other. So I'm sort of looking at this as if it's a de facto cup tie. Yeah. You know, in the grand scheme of our season, you know, Leicester aren't our fight. You know, Southampton weren't our fight. Leeds weren't our fight. You know, they were de facto cup games. You know, our bread and butter comes after this fixture conveniently. So we'll approach it as best we can. We'll give as good a punch as we can. And if it's not to be, it's not to be. But the one thing I can promise you, and any Foxes fans listening to this, is there isn't going to be a low block put in by Argyle in this game. For two reasons. One, I don't think they're mentally resilient to do a low block. That's not saying that they're, you know, light in the head or anything, or that they'll lose concentration. I just don't think it's in their nature, their makeup. And number two, I don't think we've got the players for it because we're attacking all over the pitch. So as Maresca said in his press conference before the game, you know, I think only we're behind Leeds as the best counter-attacking team of the division on all the data that the teams compile. So that probably tells you just how good we can be in transition. So we won't see much of the ball. You know, I had a joke whether or not Leicester will hit 800 passes in this game with a few people at work. We sort of done a little sweepstake on how many passes you'll complete in the game. But look, you know, that's how Maresca sets his team up. High tempo, high press, high passing stats. And, you know, I hope it's pleasing on the eye, but I hope it's not too pleasing on the eye, obviously, with my green tinted glasses on. So,
yeah, I think I don't see Plymouth as one of them teams who's going to sit deep against Leicester. I think they're one of them sides who's going to come out and give it a go. I mean, when teams have come out and gave it a go this season, like Coventry and Cardiff and Hull and teams like that, they can cause Leicester problems, innit? And this is something that Leicester have to look at with Plymouth. Plymouth can cause problems. They've got, obviously, Mumba there, haven't they? They've got Whittaker. You've got players who can execute counter-attacking perfectly. But like you say, Leicester's one of them sides who like to keep the ball. and you probably won't see much of it. I mean, if you look at the percentage this season for possession, Leicester's on top of that. But it's the way we like to play in it. You can see, obviously, like you said, the Maresca, Guardiola sort of football that, this is what he's learnt. There was a video the other day, I think it was coaching talk. There was a video of Maresca, a 12-minute video of how he sets his teams up in different formations, how he then deals with teams who set up in so many formations. And I think with Plymouth, though, they'll make it tough for Leicester. No game's easy in the Championship. I mean, you've seen it against Leeds United with Plymouth. Leeds didn't have it their own way, and I don't think that Leicester will either, to be fair. I think, Plymouth will come, give it a good go, make it hard for us, frustrate us as much as they can. And, I think we'll be in for a game tomorrow. I think Plymouth are one of them sides who really like to battle, don't they, hard? And, I think
the one thing I'll say, Jack, is that although we lie 16th on 22 points and what have you, I think we're a 3 or 4 point better off than or we should be 3 or 4 points better off than we are. I think we're 3 or 4 points better than what we're showing at the moment. We've been incredibly unlucky in some games. We've had 2 games where we've had late winners against us. Southampton was cruel at the end of that game. I mean, we put so much into that game. And it was probably a similar setup that day. Southampton had a lot of the ball. You know how Russell Martin sets his teams up. They had a lot of the ball. They stretched us far and wide, and we stuck in it, and we caused them issues. Birmingham City was a totally different kettle of fish. For 70 minutes, we were on top in that game, and we fell to a late winner that day. So I do think whilst we're 16th and, whilst we're light years away from other clubs in the Championship, we're not getting away from that. I do think we're actually a better team than 16th. We went through a period up until probably halfway through the last international break where every opposition fan was going on social media after the game saying, because obviously we haven't won away this season, but every single opposition fan was going on social media after the game saying, God, that was a tough one. Plymouth are the best side we've played this season. You don't know how frustrating that is to hear every week that we're the best team that sides have played, and yet we're getting nothing for it. So the time will come that when we do get that one away win, we'll probably be our worst performance of the season, and we'll nick one off a shoulder or something in the 97th minute. But we are better than 6. I do think we're better than 22 points, and I echo what you said about you didn't have us going down at the start of the season. I really do think that we're a better side than fighting in a relegation dogfight. I'm not saying that we're suddenly going to finish 12th, 13th, 14th. That's beyond us. But a 16th, 17th, 18th place finish, maybe a little bit higher, isn't out of the realms of possibility for me.
Yeah, I agree. Who would you say the key players are, obviously, for both sides then? I mean, you look at the Dewsbury Halls, you look at the Harry Winkses, the Wilfred Ndidis for Leicester. Then you've got Plymouth, you've got your front three, haven't you, who can score goals when they're given the chance, like your Whittakers and players like that. Are they the key players you think will affect the game tomorrow when Leicester and Plymouth do go head-to-head?
I'm not one for being starstruck when I look at opposition lineups. When we went to Leeds, I wasn't one of those who was getting all, excited about the players that we were going up against from Leeds. I accept that they had some fantastic players. I looked at the team that you put out against West Brom in the last game, and for the Championship, it is obscene. There are so many players in that side that should be nowhere near the Championship, with all due respect to them. There's obviously a reason they're in the Championship. That's clear to see from last season's struggles. But I think Kiernan Dewsbury Hall is the best player in the Championship. I know a lot of people are saying that Crysencio Somerville is, and having seen Somerville live with my own eyes, he's a very talented player. But for me, Dewsbury Hall is just on another planet. I have been a fan of Kelechi Iheanacho from the moment he came on as a substitute for Manchester City all those years ago, and he has frustrated the hell out of me in his career that he's never gone on, because I thought he had the world at his feet when he broke into the Man City side. So he's obviously a threat. You've got the likes of Mavididi who's come in, Wilfred Ndidi in midfield, Harry Winks again. You know, I'm not one to get drawn on finances and things because that's just the way of football business nowadays. But I mean, our budget compared to Leicester's budget is, I mean, it's not even worth talking about. It's 7, 8 times less than what yours is. And the money you paid for Winks is probably, we'd have to do 3 years in the Championship before we can generate that sort of income to finance a deal like that. I mean, you've got Vestergaard at the back without Fass. I mean, you'd be here all day. So I should probably start talking about some Argyle players who are ones to look out for. I'm not here to talk about Leicester, obviously. I've mentioned Morgan Whittaker. Jordan Houghton's having a very good season in midfield. Yep. He's really surprised everyone with how he stepped up to the Championship. Finn Azaz has really kicked on. He's back on loan from Aston Villa. Spent last season on loan with us as well. He's a wonderfully gifted footballer. We've got a very good centre half in Lewis Gibson. It took me 3 games this season to go onto our podcast and say he's the best centre half I've ever seen play for Argyle. So I'm sort of nailed my colours to the mast with him, and I'm living by the sword, and I'm going to die by the sword if he has some shocking games. He actually turned down a contract at Everton in the summer to come to Argyle. They were keen to keep him on their books, but he came to Argyle. We brought in a lad from FC 20, Julio Pleguezelo, who played in Europe last season, centre half. He's excellent with the ball at his feet. And the last one I want to touch on is Michael Cooper. Made his 150th appearance for the football club last week. Joined the club when he was 9. There isn't a single Argyle fan in the world who doesn't want to see Michael Cooper playing in the Premier League one day. Obviously, with our green tinted glasses on, we want it to be with Argyle, but I think we've got to be a little bit realistic. This kid is going to the Premier League at some point. He has all the ability in the world as a goalkeeper. He's been League One's goalkeeper of the year last season, Golden Glove winner for the last 2 seasons. And when you think Bazunu's come out of League One, James Trafford's come out of League One in the last 2 seasons. They've gone for 12 million and 19 million respectively. Michael Cooper beat the pair of them to the goalkeeping awards in both those seasons. And he spent half of last season out injured as well. So he's a brilliant goalkeeper. He's going to have to be on top form, I suspect, tomorrow. But, you know, there's just a few of the Argyle players to keep an eye on.
One thing I wanted to say, and you brought him up before I did, Michael Cooper, right. Leicester connections. His mum and dad are Leicester City fans. They do go to Leicester games. He does say Leicester's his second club. I don't know who supports first club, but yeah, his mum and dad are Leicester, aren't they? Michael Cooper. He said, obviously, I have to put that sort of thing aside in tomorrow's game.
Yeah, I didn't actually realise that. The only obscure fact I knew of Michael Cooper going into his Argyle career was the fact that he was actually born in Exeter. Which was quickly glossed over when he joined Argyle at the age of 9. And you know, we do sing he's one of our own, and we firmly believe that he's spent long enough in Plymouth now to qualify as a Janner, so he can forget those Exeter roots. He is a Plymouth lad. But up until I watched the press conference earlier today, I didn't know about those connections with Leicester. So you learn something new every day, and I'm sure he'll have all of his family. Which end they're in, that's going to be an interesting quirk. But I'm sure he'll have plenty of family and friends there to support him on Saturday.
Yeah, fair point. Let's have a look at some stats head to head then. First versus 16th, played 19th, 15-6. Then you've got draws, 1-4, 3-9. Then we look at the Championship head to head, and this one's an interesting one. Played 10, 4 draws, sorry. 3 wins for each individual side. Then we move on to the last 5 results at the King Power Stadium. 2009, 1-0. Plymouth beat us 1-0. 2008, 2006, a 2-2 draw. 2006 again, Leicester beat you 1-0. And then Leicester beat you 2-1 in 2004.
I have to say, Jack, Just very
Go on.
quickly, I have to say that February 2008 game, that 1-0 away win, is talked of so fondly in these parts because of all the connotations that came with it and who was in your dugout. And it was on Sky that night. I don't think I've ever recalled a manager getting 90 minutes of abuse directed at him that Holloway received that
Ian
night.
Holloway.
But yeah,
Yeah, I
that result
remember.
is still that result is still talked of so very fondly in these parts.
Yeah, that was when we got relegated that season, I believe.
Yeah, he left us when
Yeah,
we were fourth.
he
We were
did.
fourth in the division that year.
He did leave us, leave you for us. I think with Leicester though, them seasons it were kind of like we were on the verge of going down in it, and I don't know. Could you blame Holloway for Leicester going down that season? At the end of the day, we had the team that we had with the players that we had. You know, we probably shouldn't have gone down, but we did. You know, we wasn't getting Ian Holloway. You know, man was bloody getting in Mini Coopers at the training ground and stuff like that, bloody getting himself on TV quite a lot. But it was a joke, man, isn't it? You know what I'm saying? He liked to crack a good joke and that, but he needed to be more serious on the football side of things. And I just don't feel he did that at Leicester, you know what I mean? He kind of like put other things before the football things. And I don't I know with Holloway, obviously he was the man in charge when we went down, but yeah, I just think with Leicester, you know, there was yo-yoing over the last few years of them before we went down, and obviously we ended up going down in the end, which is obviously not nice to go down, but it is what it is in football, isn't it? Someone's got to get relegated and someone's got to go up. So,
Yeah, definitely.
the last game at the KP then was a 1-0 win. The Foxes nicked it very late on. Andy King with a goal for Leicester, 2009. That was the last time we played you at the KP, 2009. Andy King with a winner very late on, a corner kick. I believe you lot commented on that when Leicester put that up about the 1-0. And then you sat there and said to the admin of Leicester, hold on a minute, what about the 1-0 from 2008?
I told you, we hang on to that result whenever Argyle and Leicester are in conversation.
Yes, it's mad, isn't it? What's been your standout Plymouth Leicester game? Well, Leicester Plymouth. Is it that 1-0, is it?
It has to be, I think.
Did you have Paul Sturrock in charge then?
Yeah, and Sturrock would have been in charge that night, yeah, and he would have been in charge obviously the season after when Andy King got that winner. And I just think a lot of people didn't realise at the time, just, as I say, we were fourth in the championship, we were going great guns, we were being sold so many dreams by Holloway and the board. And we looked back at that team recently, and the team that we had that season and what they went on to achieve in football. And, Holloway spoke afterwards that he knew that team was going to get broken up. He knew that we were never going to keep hold of them. But we were so talented at that period. And when you're fourth in the championship, you're heading into the January transfer window. All of a sudden, you start to believe, don't you? And obviously, when he up sticks and left, it really did hurt a lot of people. I think some people still haven't got over it, even after all these years, as strange as that sounds. But when you're down here as an Argyle fan, you're out of the way. You're on a limb down here. We don't have a huge amount sporting wise to cling on to, and when Argyle are successful, a lot of people up country don't realise just how successful Devon and Cornwall becomes when Argyle are on it. They don't realise the buzz around the city, and it's that happened. Sturrock came in, and very quickly the wheels came off the football club, and it's obviously well written what happened just a couple of seasons later. So that would definitely have to be the one that sticks in the memory. You never know, Jack. I might be able to replace that memory at 5 o'clock tomorrow, but we'll stick with the 1-0 away win in February 2008 for now.
Yeah, I'm just reading about that now. The build-up to the match against Plymouth at the Walker Stadium, Argyle chairman Paul Stapleton spoke negatively of Holloway for allowing severely high-profile players to leave the club. Was that Was that Ebanks Blake in that at the time? Would that have been?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
who would we have had in those days?
a
Ebanks, Blake,
total.
Barry Hales, Peter
Yeah,
Halmosi would have been at the club. Akos
Barry
Bazaki.
Hales ended up at Leicester.
Yeah, I think he went with Holloway. I think Holloway
Which he
took him in
claimed
January.
Holloway, stunned by the claims his lawyer took a statement while Milan Magic accused Stapleton of sour grapes. Over
Yeah,
Holloway's move to Leicester, said Plymouth should be thankful for what they achieved during his time there. Plymouth won the match 1-0. Holloway's former charges came back to haunt him, winning just 9 out of the 32 games. He took over at Leicester. Was it November time? Was it?
I know the date. I know the date he left Argyle. He left Argyle on the 21st of November, and I know that very well because it was my birthday. And he ruined my birthday that year by walking out of the football club. So, I think it was. So it would have been the 21st November 2007, which I want to say is the same day that England got beat by Croatia in a Euro 2008 qualifier when Steve McLaren was on the touchline with an umbrella getting soaking wet at Wembley. So it's safe to say that wasn't a memorable birthday.
So yeah, he just won 9 out of 32 games at Leicester. Leicester were relegated from the Championship on the 4th of May. I was there. Entering for the first time ever in their history, their 124-year history of the third tier of English football. Leicester being up that time, one of the handful, 9 of the English Premier League teams had never been out of the first 2 tiers of English football. Holloway and Leicester parted company in 2008. He did sit and say I gave 100% to the cause, but unfortunately time ran out. The thing is with Holloway, though, we brought him in because he was doing well at Plymouth and where they was and all that, but we needed someone to steady that ship, and obviously he wasn't the man to do it. But like you say, you can't. Sometimes you got to put the blame on the players, not just the manager. But then it's down to the manager to get the best out of his players. So he's got to take part of that blame in it as well. So I think that's the same with Brendan Rodgers. That's the same with Brendan Rodgers at Leicester. Do you know what I mean? He's got to be that man to get the best out of his team. And if you're winning bloody 9 games out of 32, what Holloway did, bloody hell, you deserve to go down. And this is obviously what happened. We was yo-yoing time after time near the bottom end there, and it never went. It ended up getting relegated in the end when Holloway came. But to say that he gave 100%, I remember he came out and then there were a video. Leicester fans were like, "Oh, absolute rubbish! The man's a bloody." Someone called him a bloody fraud, and I don't know. It's the one I want to forget, really. But let's talk about the foot in both camps. Rab Douglas, I think he made 1 appearance for you lot on loan.
One game as an emergency loan signing for Rab, yeah.
Oh, was that what it was?
Yeah.
I just didn't think you liked him after giving his debut. Lillian Ellis, I mean, scored that famous goal against Leeds United for Leicester. What was your thoughts on the Frenchman?
I love Nallis. This was sort of the era where I was properly invested into Argyle. So I sort of got invested into Argyle. I think my first game was the season before Sturrock took us up the first time round. And then I was sort of dipping in and out. And I think it was a couple of seasons, or that season that Nallis played a full year with Argyle was probably my first year with a season ticket. And I mean, watching Nallis play was just a joy. He never, you could never say with Nallis he wasn't given 100%. He was one of them. He wasn't perhaps the best midfielder that we had at the time, but he was your workhorse, and he was similar to the squad we've got now. We have a lot of players who are very capable of 7 out of 10s. And sometimes that's all you want, Jack, is players who are going to give everything. They're going to be what you need them to be for your system. And Nallis was that archetypal 7 out of 10 every week. There was a lot of affection shown towards Nallis when he was here. It didn't last anywhere near as long as we all wanted it to. But certainly enjoyed watching him play, definitely.
Yeah, we're a good player for Leicester, Lillian Nallis. Liked him when growing up as a kid. Obviously, we've talked about bloody Mr. Ian Holloway. I think that's what you want to move on from. Barry Hales. I mean, you talked about Barry Hales being one of your better players in that time. Yeah, Barry Hales scored. He did score for Leicester. I don't know though. I don't know. I don't think it worked out for Barry Hales as well as it did for Plymouth. Barry Hales.
You see this smile. You see this smile on my face, Jack. That is what Barry Hales used to do to every Argyle fan. You know, nowadays when you got all these cameras at football games,
yeah,
and you've got these isolated cameras that just follow certain individuals. You know, when Messi plays for Argentina, there's always a camera following Messi in the stadium. I'd have loved in that era for a camera to have just followed Barry Hales, because he'd spend so long teapotting with both arms on his hips, throwing his arms around, arguing with the referees,
yep.
you know, trying to exchange shirts with the centre half of the other team. He was absolutely box office, Barry Hales. And, you know, you touched on it there. That period with Barry Hales and Ebanks Blake, probably as a good a strike partnership as we'd had for a long time. Certainly at that period, you know, we just come off the back of having Mickey Evans, who fired us into the Championship in the Paul Sturrock days. And I mean that as a partnership, Ebanks, Blake, and Hales every week was just absolute box office, and he was just such a joy to watch. He really was.
Yeah, we had a chant for Barry Hales when it really. We all dream of a team of Barry Hales, and then we'd go one Barry Hales, and then get to the end. He only scored 2 goals in his 28 appearances for Leicester, Barry Hales. And,
brilliant bloke. Brilliant bloke.
Brilliant. Callum Wright.
Yeah. Came in January, one of the 4 permanent signings we made in January. For whatever reason, just didn't work out for him. At his previous clubs. Don't know why. He's another one really. He's just he's very gifted, Callum Wright, but he doesn't have a great amount of championship experience. He's had an injury this season as well, which has set him back. Last season, he was so instrumental in the second half of the season. Without his goal against Shrewsbury on a Tuesday night at the death, you know, we certainly may not have finished with the big trophy at the end of the year. You know, he comes in, he can play anywhere on the left or the right for us. He's fielding in a number of positions. He's probably best seen at the moment as a bit of an impact sub off the bench. You know, when you've got Mumba, Whittaker, Bundu / Hardy who've run the defence ragged, and then you can bring on someone of Callum Wright's technical ability, you know, that really does strengthen our attack. But he's another one. He's a likable character from all the interviews you get with him in the media, and he works hard. And you know, I think he's one that, with the right coaching, which I'm confident he's getting down here at Argyle, I think he could turn into a very handy player at this level, most definitely.
Yeah, we're good at Cheltenham, I think it was. Callum Wright.
Yeah.
We've obviously got 4 more to look over. David Stockdale, I think we had him when we were a year when we had all these bloody goalkeepers. I think it were in League One. We had David Martin and that. David Martin, Ben Amwick, bloody David Stockdale. We had Tony Warner in there. We had bloody all these goalkeepers. What was your thoughts on David Stockdale?
I think he came in the season after he was with you, because he was with you guys 08-09, wasn't he?
Yeah, we had him on loan.
And he was with us 09-10. And he did a fairly decent job. And there was a famous moment. We played a game at Sheffield United. It finished 4-3 to Sheffield United, and whether or not it was the winning goal or certainly one of the goals that got United back into the game was one of them where Stockdale rolled the ball out in front of him, thinking that all the players were upfield. And there was a player stood behind him, and he ran round, nicked it off him, and tapped it home. I think the more I think about it, the more it was the winner for Sheffield United that day, that finished 4-3. But he's gone on to have a really good career, Stockdale, in and around the Football League. Bit of a journeyman goalkeeper. like a lot of them tend to be in and around the Championship League One level. But another one who worked hard to get to where he was, and solid goalkeeper. I wouldn't say anything more than that, but he was handy when we had him, definitely.
Paul Gallagher, I mean, one of the best penalty takers I've seen at Leicester, with the style that he takes it, where he walks away from the penalty, his back turned, and then bang, goal. You know what you're going to get
Yeah,
from Paul Gallagher. One of the best free kick takers and all. Did score some great goals for Leicester, 2 against Palace, 2 long distance strikes. He was obviously known for hitting them from distance. Paul Gallagher scored some great goals for the Foxes. What was your thoughts on Paul Gallagher?
the season he was with us, he was on loan. Sturrock, I think it was Sturrock, brought him in on loan. He finished top scorer that season as well, I think. And without him, we wouldn't have stayed up in the Championship that year. His goals were so instrumental. I think at the same time we had players like Alan Judge had come into the football club. David Gray had come in on loan from Manchester United. The one thing that Plymouth Argyle do very well at is utilise the loan market. Because our resources are never going to be that of a lot of clubs in the divisions we're competing in. The loan market is where we've got to be prudent, and obviously Paul Gallagher was a big plus point for that. But yeah, another one who at the time we needed somebody like Paul Gallagher. He just came along. Same as what I said earlier about the lad Graham Carey, who we had under Derek Adams. At that time, we needed somebody like Graham Carey, and he just happened to appear on the doorstep. Derek Adams brought him in. Same with Paul Gallagher. Sturrock needed somebody. He built his promotion winning sides off that flair midfielder. We had David Frio in those days. Paul Gallagher was the man he wanted to bring in to be the focal point, to be our flair player. And he was a bit of a set piece specialist, as you say.
Yeah.
But without his goals, I think our recent history could have been totally different.
Yep. Tony James and Peter Shilton. A bit before my time, pair of them, but I've heard quite a bit
Definitely
about
before
them
my
both.
time as well.
I believe Tony James saved us from going down one season. Peter Shilton, another one, Leicester born and bred. One of England's best ever keepers. Yeah, Peter Shilton. He was at the club when Gordon Banks were there. Peter Shilton. We had 2 of the best keepers at Leicester. You wouldn't believe it, would you, if I told you that? But yeah, Peter Shilton, top quality goalkeeper. You ain't gonna get any really better in them positions, are you, as an England keeper again? You know what I'm saying? But that's back in them days now, isn't it? Obviously, football's changed quite massively since then. Thoughts on Peter Shilton and Tony James?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a massive amount of Tony James because the year he was with us was the year I was born.
Mm-hmm.
And same with Shilton. He was a little bit before my time. There's a couple of stories about Shilton when he was manager. He came in as player manager and to try and keep us up. Unfortunately, it wasn't possible, and he spent our record signing at the time. I can't remember what the figure was. That didn't work out, and then he was concentrating solely on management. And the year after, when he got us in and around the playoffs, and we lost to Burnley. And for some reason, there's always been a little bit of niggle between Argyle and Burnley. I think whether it's related to that, I don't know. But the season after, he came out of retirement at the age of 45 to try and help the team. And then in '95, he departed the football club, which then led to I think it might have been Warnock who came in after him.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's not a bad person to replace you, is it? But I mean, what a Phillips in the cap that was for a club like Argyle to have Peter Shilton come into the club, not only as a player, but then to have him as manager. It's just a shame it didn't really work out a little bit better.
Yeah. Team selection.
You want me to try and predict what Steven Schumaker is going to put out on the pitch, do you?
Yeah.
I've tried this so many times, and there's always a rabbit in the hat with Schumaker. If you're asking me the side that I would pick, if I was qualified enough and paid well enough, like Schumaker is.
Yep.
Michael Cooper would be in goal. The back four would be Kane, Kesler, Hayden at right back. Julio Pleguezelo centre half with Lewis Gibson.
Yep.
Mikel Miller, would be at left back. That's not a disgrace on Brendan Galloway, who came back in last week. But just, he's had so long off. We've got 3 games in a week coming up as well. We're going to have to rotate the squad somehow. So I play Miller at left back. Wouldn't change my midfield 3. Luke Cundle, Jordan Houghton, Finn Azaz. Obviously, Barley Mumba would play on the left, Morgan Whittaker on the right, and then I'd probably stick with Mustafa Bundu up front. Ryan Hardy's just coming back off a hamstring injury. And again, as I say, 3 games in a week. This is a de facto cup tie, as I mentioned. We've got QPR, Rotherham, and Birmingham as our next 3 games. 2 of them are at home. They're more our bread and butter than this sort of fixture is. So I'd be probably trying to look at keeping Ryan Hardy fully ready for 2 of those 3, if not all 3. So there'll be an element of that probably comes into Schumacher's mind, that there is 4 games coming up in really quick space of time. Then you get into the 3 games in 6 days, whatever it is, over Christmas. So it'll be interesting to see, but that would certainly be the 11 that I go with from Argyle.
Yep. Leicester's team is Ricardo Pereira is going to be missing for this game due to suspension. I think we will go with Hermanson in goal, Vestergaard, Fass. I think Hamza Chowdhury will play in the game. Harry Winks. I think we'll see Fatawu in there. Wilfred Ndidi, Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, Jamie Vardy. I think he'll go Stefan Mavididi as well. I think Vardy plays this game after Iheanacho played 90 minutes against West Brom. The last one, Joe, is the score prediction.
How partisan do I go here?
What's your heart in the head?
Yeah, that's the way I was going to approach it. There's 2 ways to look at this. There's a head way, there's a heart way. The heart says that I think we, as you mentioned earlier on, we do have players to cause issues, like we caused issues against Southampton, against Leeds, against Ipswich. We really gave Ipswich a good go at Portman Road. So we've performed well in these games. We are short of the quality required at that end of the division. The heart says that we can nick something out of it, whether that's 1.3 points, I don't know. The head just tells me that Leicester are on a level to us. As I said, you could that side that you could name tomorrow wouldn't look out of place in the Premier League. I'd say it's almost definitely better than the bottom 5 or 6 or even 7 teams in the Premier League this season from what I've seen in that division. But look, as I said, the way I'm looking at this, it's a cup tie, in my opinion. Just go into it, give as good a punch as we can. If we come out of it, that would be great with a win. But as I say, we've only lost 1 away game by more than 1 goal, and that was the night we made 7 changes. So we're going to be in the game.
Was that against Bristol City? Was that against Bristol City?
Yeah, we were 2-0 down inside 7 minutes. The ball was in play for about 3 minutes, and we touched the ball about 4 times, and 2 of them were kickoffs. So it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare evening. The one thing I will say, Jack, as well, just very quickly, a lot of people probably this stat has slipped their mind. Bearing in mind we finished with 31 wins last season and 101 points, we haven't won an away league fixture on a Saturday kicking off at 3 p.m. since the 15th of October last year. A 4-1 away win at Milton Keynes. Somewhere along the line, that record has to be broken. And history tells me, following Argyle for 20 or so years, history tells me those sorts of records are broken against the top team. And then when you come up against a lesser team at home the week after, you go to pot. So it would be the most quintessentially Plymouth Argyle thing to go to the King Power tomorrow and nick a result. But my head does say it's going to be a tough afternoon.
Yeah, no comment. You gave me a bloody stat there, hadn't you? I don't know. Joe, tell everyone where they can find you, mate, before I let you go, pal.
We're on all social media, Facebook, X. We're now on TikTok, which surprised me. Instagram, all of that lot. At Argyle Life 1886 across the board. And our podcast, Green and White Podcast, is available on all the platforms, Spotify, Apple, whatever that people want to use. And as I say, keep an eye out in the new year, because you're going to see this mug on the podcast rather than just my voice. So we're branching into the world of YouTube, which is something exciting.
Great. All the best with that. No, thank you for coming on, Joe. Really appreciate it, mate. And
no problem.
All the best for the rest of the season after tomorrow, mate.
Yeah, and you, Jack. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. That was Joe. Talked all things Plymouth. What a reply. No comment. I couldn't put it, mate. Yeah, that's what you do when things like that get said. But no, thank you to everybody who's watched. If you haven't checked out the Championship Predictions Week 20, please do so. It helps us out massively. Guys, if you've enjoyed this stream, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel as well. If you're new to the channel, you haven't subscribed already, please do so. It helps out massively. What is coming up on the final whistle? So we'll have the match day vlog out tomorrow. As Leicester take on Plymouth, and then we will have the Millwall match preview as well coming up. Week 21 of the Championship Predictions as well. We'll do all that. But no, thank you for watching, everyone. Take care. And come on, the Foxes. Hi all. Thank you for watching the final whistle. If you enjoy all our content, please remember to smash a like, share, and subscribe to the channel.